Hey guys, today we're going to be going through a nice and simple hip flexor routine. So the only things you'll need are a mat or a towel or something that you can put your knee on so your knee is comfortable. I'm using a foam roller here that I'll reach out to from time to time if I need a little bit of extra balance, or you could do this just next to a chair or something. But let's get into it. So we're going to start with a very simple stretch just to feel your hip flexors, and I want to teach you something else that I would like you to pay attention to. So we're going to start by feeling the bowl of the pelvis, and imagine it's a bowl of water, and tilt that bowl or pour the water down your back leg. So I've started with my hip over my knee, so I'm not in some big stretch to begin with. We'll get there in a second, but first of all, your hip is over your knee. That imaginary bowl of water pours down your back leg. And this is a posterior tilt, a posterior rotation of the pelvis that's just going to engage some of these hip flexors. And from this point, I just want you to try and push your hip forward. So imagine there's a string on this front hip pulling you forwards. So you're not arching your back and you're not lunging forwards. There's just a small pull through that front hip while you're engaging that posterior rotation. And we'll just do a few little repetitions of relaxing, engaging the posterior rotation, and then pushing that hip forwards, or imagine it being pulled forwards by a string. So hopefully this is just helping you mindfully connect with that part of your body. And I may end up using this phrase, posterior rotation, later in this routine. So engaging it to begin with and feeling it is a helpful thing to do. So we'll switch sides here. When we use the phrase hip flexors, we're really talking about a few muscles. There's one of the quadriceps attaches over the hip, so that's a hip flexor. We've got the psoas muscle, which also attaches to the lumbar spine. So at the moment, we're not engaging those lumbar spine attachments of the psoas. We're just working on the hip joint by keeping the torso relatively braced, by imagining that string drawing the hip forwards and using this posterior rotation. So we're just dealing with the hip element at the moment, and we'll get to the lower back bit in a second. But hopefully you've connected now with that posterior rotation, and this small movement can just help that hip extension. Good. So we'll switch sides again, and we're going to go into a lower lunge now. Still just using a gentle pump movement, I call this flossing. We're just going to floss the joint. Here I'm thinking about trying to end up with a straight line from my back knee to my shoulders, and then just come out of stretch and drive down and through. And we'll just spend a bit of time flossing and cleaning the front of this back hip. It also stretches the front adductors, the muscles on the upper inner thigh, and that's a nice added bonus. I've got my opposite hand down on the floor to my front leg, so I've just got this tripod balance. And then we'll switch sides. Still just gently moving, gently warming up. Nothing too intense just yet. Again, aiming for that straightish line from your back knee to your shoulders as you drive the hips down towards the ground. You can even use some eye movement just to look up as you drive the hips down, so not fully extending the neck, but just drawing the head up like from a string. There we go. Now we're going to start dealing with some of the lumbar spine attachments now of the psoas muscle. So I've got the foam roller here for balance on the outside my front leg, and that's important because as I drive the hips down now, I am going to lunge, so we're going to lunge forwards. I'm going to pay attention not to hinge too much from my, say, lower thoracics, upper lumbars. I still want most of the hinge to come from the hip, so I'm keeping relatively braced through the lower back. I don't want to just be hinging too much here. That's not doing anything to my hip. I want to be driving the hip down more than anything. But the reason I've got the foam roller outside my front leg is that the same side as the back leg, that hand is going to reach up and over. So what we're doing here is we're bringing in a little bit of lumbar spine extension and side bending to the opposite side. And then that's bringing in multiple directions of stretch into the psoas where it attaches to the lumbar spine, just in and out the stretch. At the same time, to help the hip extension, I'm pushing that front knee forwards, hand goes up and back to the opposite side. Switch sides. So I'm going to bring my point of balance outside the front leg, drive that knee forwards, which creates the back hip extension, and then the same side as the back leg, that same side hand goes up and over. So we've got lumbar spine extension and side bending. Nicely done. So we'll switch sides again, same position for this. In fact, we're going to go down into the position before where we go into this longer lunge. Now we're going to do a style of stretching called PNF stretching, where we activate the muscle in stretch. So drive the hips down, aim for this straight line from your back knee to your shoulders. And here we're going to activate the muscles on the front side of the hip. So the way I think of that is I push the knee down into the floor as if I'm trying to scoop and drag the floor forwards. So we're going to do a 5-second contraction, imagining pulling that floor forwards with your knee, and then relax. And as you relax, try and go a little bit deeper into stretch. And we're just going to do 2 more, so we'll do 3 of these each side. Contract, pulling that knee into the floor, trying to drag the floor forwards, and relax. Go a little bit deeper down into it, and then contract. Last one on this side, 5-second contraction, and then relax, dropping the hips down. Really good. Switch sides. So we'll just find the position first, dropping the hips down, long line from your back knee to your shoulders. Contracts that back hip. Imagine pulling the floor forwards with your knee, and relax. And on the relax, you go deeper into the stretch. Contract. And relax, sinking down on the relax. And then last one, contracting that knee, well, contracting the hip, imagining dragging the knee through the floor, and relax. Okay, now we need to do the opposite. We need to contract the closed side of the joint. So what we mean by that is as you drive down into a hip flexor stretch on this back hip, we're opening the front and we're closing the back of the hips. Now we need to contract that closed side. So find the stretch, and to do this we're going to just pull this foot up into the air. I just need to readjust my front foot. I found that my knee was too far forwards. So here I'm just going to contract that hamstring and glute, squeezing the heel towards the butt. We'll do a 5-second hold and relax. Try and drop that hip a bit further down. And again, contract that closed side of the joint. Just do 3 each side, 5-second holds, and relax. Just 5-second hold. Hamstrings and glutes, squeeze the glutes, and relax. Well done. Just spend a few seconds in this last relaxed state before switching sides. So find that position, knee to shoulders, hips go down, find the stretch. Once you've got the stretch, we'll contract hamstrings and glutes, squeeze, 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 and relax. Just activating that closed side of the joint, gaining control of your stretch. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Relax. And last one. Squeeze those hamstrings and glutes as the hip drives down. And then we'll just spend a few seconds enjoying that new range of motion deeper in the stretch. Well done. So now I'm going to use my foam roller as a little bit of a weight. If I had, say, a 2 kilogram dumbbell, I'd use that instead. But what we're going to do is the same side as the back leg. We're going to use the foam roller in that hand and just reach up and over, do a little pulse. Switch sides, reaching up and over, little pulse. So the weight of a foam roller or a dumbbell is just adding a little bit of load where the hip flexors are having to balance this movement. And in a second, we're just going to do the same, but from a standing position, and just reach up and over, just engaging those ab muscles a little bit more as well now. Your body's having to stabilize that lumbar spine extension and side bending. And we'll switch sides. So this is just a nice way to integrate floor-based stretches into a standing position, which can then carry over into real life activity a bit more efficiently and effectively. Because really what we're trying to do with any stretching routine is train the brain to control movement that can carry over into real life. There's no point just being flexible if you can't actually control, stabilize, and then use that movement in the life that you live. So have a little feel and a wriggle and a walk around, see how you feel. Hopefully you feel more upright and awake through the fronts of the hips, and we stretched you in a way that also brought some neurological control and stability. So down in the comments, let me know how you get on. I always love to hear how you're doing with these things. And up here, if you want to carry on some movement right now, I'll link you with the video I made last week, which is a nice little primal movement pattern, which is great for creating stability, coordination, and control of your spine. So I'll leave that with you up here. And until next time, have a healthy and happy week.